Okay, so we are back in Zechariah, the last verse of chapter 6, to kind of wrap up some things that I left, because I think it ties up into the next chapter pretty well. So let's go to chapter 6, verse 15. And they that are afar off came and build in the temple of the Lord, and they shall know that the Lord of hosts hath sent me unto you. And then we got that little period, and we're going to go on to the rest of the verse 5. So 5 part B. And this shall come to pass, if ye will diligently obey the voice of the Lord your God. And I gave that importance to that latter half because we're going to focus on that latter half. And it shall come to pass if ye will diligently obey the voice of the Lord your God. Last time we were talking about how it says, strangers shall build in the temple. I think that's a reference to the Gentiles coming in and being a part of the church of God. And I explained a lot of that before, and I don't want to eat up our time with exactly that. But it says, if you diligently obey the voice of God. I want to go into Isaiah 58. You may have heard a little bit about Isaiah 58 in previous Bible studies. I think this is a powerful chapter in and of itself. It deserves its own full-on Bible study on it. It would probably take 2 weeks to go through it, because when I've read Isaiah 58, I see something that it challenges Christians today. It definitely challenges me, what God is saying that they're doing, what needs to be done. And they're actually talking about the nature of fasting and true fasting. And we're going to cross through Isaiah 58 off and on when we get to chapter 7. So I kind of wanted to bring attention to it because we're going to go through a lot of Isaiah 58. I want to focus on 10 and 15 when it comes to this verse that we were in Zechariah and referencing to it. So let me go ahead and get along with it. And if thou draw out thy soul to the hungry and sanctify the afflicted soul, and shall the light raise in obscurity. If I'm even reading that right, I could be honest, my disability could be affecting that. And the darkness be as the noonday. And the Lord shall guide thee continually, and sanctify thy soul in drought, and make fat thy bones, and thou shalt be like a watered garden, and like a spring of water. Those water fail not. Now that reminds me a lot of Jesus saying, "There'll be wells of living water shall come out of thee, and thou shall be thee shall build the old waste places. Thou shalt raise up the foundations of many generations, and thou shalt be called the repairer of the breach, and the restorer of the paths that dwell in. If thou turn away thy foot from the Sabbath, from doing thy pleasure on my holy day, and call the Sabbath a delight, the holy of the Lord, humble, and thou shalt honor him, not doing thy own ways, nor finding thy own pleasure, nor speak thy own words. Then shalt thou delight thyself in the Lord, and I will cause thee to ride upon the high places of the earth, and feed thee with the inheritance of Jacob thy father, for the mouth of the Lord hath spoken. I believe this also applies when it comes to if you would diligently hear the word of the Lord, that all those blessings will come up onto you. I believe that's very much applied to what was being spoken here. They were rebuilding the temple, and it says to build the waste places. Just find that rather interesting. That in doing that, you don't want to seek your own pleasures, you want to be humble and seek what God wants, His way. Well, so let's go to 7, chapter 7 here. And then 7 is what we will call a historical interlude. There's a little bit of time that passes, and what's ironic is also Haggai, which is a parallel with this book, has a similar event happen in it where there a little time passes and then it addresses some issue. So let's go ahead and go see verse 1. And it came to pass in the 4th year of King Darius, we're dating it, we know when it is, Darius is reigning here, that the word of the Lord came unto Zechariah in the 4th day of the 9th month, even Chisleu, which is interesting. We get this date of the 4th year of Darius, which would actually have been about 500 years before Jesus came onto the scene. We also have this month being known as Chisleu, which is actually something in which the Jews adopted from the Babylonian exile. They took their terms for things. So it actually dates the mindset of the Jews, that they were still using like even the Babylonian calendar. We actually see this same month being referenced in Nehemiah 1:1, if you want to reference. And it would actually be roughly around what we would consider November. Interesting, we're coming up to that. I mean, we're just in October, but this year is going fast.
I was just reading in Nehemiah, and I think it's in chapter 8, if I'm not mistaken, and it says something about that year and that date, which would have been October. So that was October, this is November.
Very interesting.
Well, what I think I learned is that their months are like a month and a half.
Yeah, they definitely don't break it up the way we do. It's not like like calendars are even a big debate within the Jewish things. Like, if you know why there was the Dead Sea Scrolls, it's because there was a group of people that broke away for saying you're evil and demonic essentially for not going by this calendar date. So we're going to start our own priesthood over here. Which sounds crazy to us, but like they were serious about keeping their time.
But I don't even know why that seems crazy, because it seems like from the Romans, Baptists, Methodists, that's what they did.
Yeah.
What, based on calendar date? We're
Or
talking about
based
just
on
denomination.
theology that they didn't want to follow. They just branched off and made their own, basically.
Yeah, that's all of them. That's the way all religions were made. Somebody interpreted it different.
Yeah. See, a lot of people want it. I'm going to go on a completely different side here. But a lot of people don't like there's denominations. I like I think there's a big difference between a separate denomination of Christianity and a whole out different religion.
Oh, yeah.
I want to put that out there. And like some people don't like the names. I like to know it because then I know what doctrines are good, what you hold dear to you. We hold, to be honest, we hold the Holy Spirit dear to us. We recognize it, so some may call us Pentecostal now. Title's a title. I don't think it's really good to be described by it, but like if someone says I'm a Baptist, then I know you're interested in winning souls all the time and getting them baptized, which isn't a bad thing, but with that title I can know what I can talk to you about, what will excite you, and I can build you up in it.
That's the truth. That is. You by their doctrinal base, you can know pretty much how they believe, and you can understand that person better.
You got like a stepping stone towards it, because not every Baptist is going to be free will or stuff like that. So you know a foothold to go in, and then you learn more about them, because not every Christian is going to hold the same doctrine. But I like the terms. So I can be like, okay, then I can talk this, and I can pick on this. I got one guy, he's from Puerto Rico, and he said he grew up Catholic, so I know what to pick at him with. I do. I'm like, it's like, so purgatory, huh? And it's a fun banter. But I think, and then some Methodists right now, they're so divided right now that you don't really know where they're holding on. My mom knows what was a Methodist church in West Virginia. They heard that they accepted the LGBT community. They dropped Methodist from their name. They had a fight over their church, which they have a graveyard attached to. They had family members for generations. They fought the Methodist church to get it back. And I was thinking, as soon as they took away that title, they were willing to give up that attachment to this big church that has a lot of resources for the sake of the Word of God. I said, I know God's going to bless them.
That's right.
Because it's not really about I'm attached to that church's, a lot of it's wealth. A lot of it's they have money and resources. I'm not attached to their money and resources. I'm attached to when they used to represent the Word. So my honors to the Word, and God bless them. They got back their church. Way off topic, but hopefully that helps. I love when God does that. I can study, but clearly God wants to have a different, deal with different issues. I don't know. I'm tired and lagging. Buffering. I'm mentally buffering today. Okay, so we're down to verse 2. And I ain't going to be able to pronounce those names. When they had sent unto the house of the Lord, Shazirith, and Ragamia, C-H. Rimamelech. Yeah, that goes well. And their men to pray before the Lord. And one of the reasons why I can't recognize those names is because these are Babylonian given names. We can think about in Daniel, he got a different name when he was sent to Babylon. You can think Radshak, Meshach, and Abednego don't fully sound, they got their own Babylon names. So Jews that were in the Babylonian captivity, they got a Babylonian name. And you can see that these people were. So these were people that were in the exile, and since they were free to go back to their homeland, they went to inquire God about some things. Because remember, at that time, the only place you could find God, really see God, was supposed to be the temple, and they're trying to build it. So they went back to their homeland, and we're going to see later how they kind of incited God. They asked of him what to do. Okay, 3. And to speak unto the priests. So they prayed to God, they spoke unto the priests, in which were in the house of the Lord of hosts, and to the prophets, saying, should I weep in the 5th month, separating myself, as we have done these many years? So what they go unto the Lord, they pray, and they ask counsel. And I want to put this, we think sometimes bad about, we don't have to fully ask them in, but God says in the first Psalms, doesn't it say, that woe is the person that gets ungodly counsel? So the opposite of that means good to those that seek godly counsel. I think this is an important thing. I think a lot of people nowadays consider seeking counsel as a weak thing. I go to work and I go and I talk to people about what I got to do, and I know essentially what I got to do, but I have a boss over me, and I go and I get counsel from them. I'm like, okay, how do you want me to go about this? Because I want to be on page with you. And they sit there and act like I don't know what I'm doing. I'm like, I can just go and do what I need to do. I know what needs to be done, but I want to seek counsel. I want to be in agreement with you. And I see that this is what these people are. They're seeking godly counsel of the priests and of the prophets. Which, ironically, when we're looking in the background of Zechariah, Zechariah could have been on both of those lines. He was a prophet that was in a priestly lineage. So he's extra qualified, I guess, to say, why are we praying in the 5th month? Why are they fasting in the 5th month? Well, that's when the temple was destroyed. And they're asking, why should we continue to fast, continue to weep, when the temple is almost already built? It's like, well, should we continue this practice that we've done for 70 years, when essentially the reason why we've been doing it is kind of over? Pretty interesting.
So the fifth month was the month that the temple was destroyed?
Yes, the 5th month was when the temple was destroyed. Okay, so Psalms kind of refers to this in Psalms 137, 1 and 2. By the river of Babylon, there we sat down, we wept when we remember Zion. We hung our harps upon the willows in the midst of thereof. So the sorrow of the exile, and the sorrow of the temple being destroyed. And so we see in 4 and 5 of Zechariah, God gives his answer. Then came the word of the Lord unto me, saying, Speak unto all the people of the land, and to the priests, saying, When ye fasted and mourned in the 5th month, and in the 7th month, even 70 years, did you at all fast unto me, even me? Ain't that interesting? I think they're fasting and removing the heart of God, and he says, your heart wasn't in it, your heart wasn't in the right place. When I do my studies, I read a John Vernon McGee study guide. I like the way he puts some things I don't. But when he constantly was talking about this chapter, he was saying, when the heart is right, the ritual is right. When the heart is wrong, the ritual is wrong.
That's right.
And I kept thinking about that because we think negatively of rituals, but he's sitting there, it's like when your heart is truly for God, God honors your sacrifice and what you do. But if your heart is wrong, there's no point in it. It's just like tithing or giving. If you're not doing it, knowing that God's blessed you of it, don't do it. It's just going to make you bitter, and it ain't going to go to where God needs it to. You won't bless.
Well, the Bible says that God will bless us. So we're not doing it out of a cheerful heart, and because God's already been good to us, not because we're expecting him to be good to us, then we're not doing it right. But then we, along those lines, Josh, and what you just said, about the ritual part of it, there's people all the time that are coming up and saying, I need to be baptized. I need to be baptized. But if you're not saved, you're going to go down a dry center and come up a wet one. That's all it is. If our heart is not right, baptism doesn't save you. It was the blood of Jesus that saved you. And if we're just getting baptized for the ritual of it, it's not doing us any good. And so I think, that just as we're talking about right there, anything that is ritual, it's not of God. I mean, if it's not in the right context and the heart's not right.
And I think that's what they were saying in the other chapter of Isaiah that you were talking about, the fasting. That he said exactly the same thing that he's saying here. Why are you doing it? Because I'm not accepting it because of the way you're doing it and your heart and your mindset. But I also was thinking too about when you just said that, and right before that you just said, not about fasting. It'll come back.
Tithing?
Tithing or
Oh,
not?
you're tithing. Okay, I just wanted to explain my part of that. Because I don't think that I first started tithing because I tithed it from prison, with the heart of giving. I did it out of discipline because that's how I felt like my relationship began with God. And then I fell in love with God. And then I wanted to give or do. But at first I think I really genuinely was just doing it out of knowing I don't want to be the person to take from his storehouse. I don't want to be the person. But I definitely didn't say, oh, I have this money every month and I want
Yeah.
I'm going to say that I think the relationship with us and God changes over time a little bit when that. I think we come in that, it's good to come in that sense of fear, in that sense of obedience to him, because he says, I remember before he says, you're not my servants, but you're my friends. I think there's a moment where we realize our mistake, and then there's this realize where God gives you the blessing of falling in love with him. I really believe that there's this level of growth that comes into that. So,
I believe that too, and I believe that also comes to as we mature in our relationship, that we come to appreciate the things of God, such as tithing and fellowship and, I was praying today about this, I've never seen such a lack of desire for the house of God as I'm seeing right now. I mean, literally to walk into the church and go, like, I have to do this, Let me tell you, you'll stand before God for that. The Bible tells you that if you're not doing it out of a sincere heart, then don't be doing it at all. Because you're gonna give an account for that. And how sad is that? As good as God has been to you, and then that's as much, that's what we give him? No. So I understand this.
Okay, so you might have also recognized that it said the fifth month, and also the seventh month. So we know the fifth month is the destruction of the temple. In the seventh month, so 2 months later when the temple was destroyed, this is a different name, there was a governor in Judah called Gedaliah. He was assassinated at this time. And if you want to take a note, because I'm not going to read the whole thing, Jeremiah 47 and 16 actually talks about Gedaliah. So they were also referencing not only the temple's destruction, but the loss of this great civil leader at the same time. So that's why the seventh month is brought up. I want to go back to Isaiah 58, 3 and 7, well, 3 and 5 actually. To continue about that whole ritual and fasting thing. And when he said they were fasting, but did he really even do it to God? You know what? I like food. I don't really want to give up food for anything but God. And I know sometimes when I will get, I'm going to be honest, I'm frustrated with something. I get frustrated with God. I'm like, I want something to happen, and I always heard fasting moves the hand of God. I sit there and I'll say, well, I'm fasting today. And I know that's the wrong heart. I sit back and it's like I really don't have a desire to eat. And I'm sitting there, it's like, do I really want to hunger strike God? And I'm like, I know I have the wrong heart. And I'll begrudgingly eat food because it's like I don't have an appetite for food right now, but I know I'm not doing it for the right reasons, so I might as well eat. No, this has been a recent thing that's affected me before, and I'm just like, I can't fast under this mindset. I just can't, because it ain't glorifying God one bit. I'm not hunger striking Him. That's not why I want to fast. But we see in Isaiah 58, I'm telling you, that has to be a Bible study I eventually do. 58 and 59, I don't know. It's really challenged me as a Christian reading some of this. So in 3 through 5, therefore have we fasted, saying the Lord, and thou seest not. They're saying, we fasted as people, but God hasn't seen my suffering. Therefore have we afflicted our souls, and thou hast not taken knowledge. Remember what David said? Who am I that you acknowledge me? You know me, God. He's made galaxies, measured in light years. I'm measured in pounds and a couple more than I want to mention. I went and got my temps, and I have to go and say, it's like, well, are you so-and-so amount of weight? I'm like, unfortunately, a little bit more.
I'm glad you've done that. I'm glad you're doing that.
But, a little off topic, but yeah. Behold, in the day of your fasting, ye found pleasure, and you did what you wanted to do, and exalted all your labors. Oh, wasn't that wonderful that I fasted? I remember a lady at my last job, and she didn't skip. It didn't look like she skipped a meal, unfortunately. But she would say, I just love fasting. I love what it does to the figure. It's a diet. Like, you know what it says?
Glorified that.
Yeah, you know what it says that God, when you boast of things you do, God says you already got your reward.
Yes.
You got your reward. I don't see it either, but you got it. Well, I heard that and I'm just like, I'm biting my tongue because I really want to say something because this is kind of backwards. Fasting is a diet. That's what I mean by hunger striking, but.
Well, now they have the fasting diet. You fast every other day to cleanse your body.
I've heard that only, like, the keto diet, I heard people can eat and then they will only be hungry once every other day. I wish I didn't have to feel hungry. I'm just going to be honest with you, make things easier. But yeah, we're turning a biblical truth, a doctrinal thing, into lasciviousness. If you were here for when we did 2 John, you learned how they said false prophets. And the irony, you're talking about all these people saying stuff that God don't really claim here earlier. That's what we've been doing in the early morning and Sunday. We've been doing 2 John, we're doing Jude. It's all about false prophets. Interesting how that tied in. Where were we? Okay, 4 and then 5. Behold, ye fast for strife and debate, and to smite with fists of wickedness. Ye shall not fast as ye do in this day. Can you imagine fast ending in fist fights? That seems crazy to me.
Well, I've heard of people years ago, thank God I don't hear it anymore, but years ago, you hear people say, well, I'm just going to fast and God moves them out of the way. Why didn't you pray that God would deal with their heart, or, fast that God would, that they would see the hand of God? Why are you fasting that God moves them out of the way?
I could see that it would end in a fight because only glory they want is from those people.
Interesting point. Interesting point for strife and debate. Last night's debate, right?
Yeah.
Strife and debate. Oh, okay. So to make your voices heard on high. Is it such a fast that I have chosen? That's saying, hey, is this how I'm going to fast? I believe this is also referring to how Jesus hits on the scene and what he does. Listen to this. A day for a man to afflict his soul, questioningly. Is it to bow down? And we'll have to read the rest of this.
Down his head down like a bull rush.
Yeah, like a bull rush, which I remember your story about that lady saying, well, is God down there? No. This is a biblical example of why sometimes solemnly, sadly praying like this is going to get you nowhere.
Well, it goes right on here to say to spread out sackcloth and ashes. That's the mourn.
Yeah. Because I clearly need to read the rest of this 6 and 7. But yeah, actually, very much so. Yeah, to spread sackcloth and ashes unto him. Wilt thou call this a fast and an acceptable day of the Lord? Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and read 6 and 7 here in Isaiah. Is not this a fast that I have chosen? Again, this is where it's saying what Jesus would do. That's what the people at the time is. This is the kind of stuff, fast Jesus in here in 6 here in Isaiah. Is not, to loosen the bonds of wickedness. Sorry, I was thinking of the wicked, and I don't think that would be wickedness. To loosen the bonds of wickedness, to undo the heavy bonds, and to let the oppressed go free, and that they break every yoke. Ain't that a wonderful idea of a fast? I don't hear anyone saying, let's go and fast like this. And this is what I'm going to be honest. This is what when I read Isaiah 58, I sit here and I'm like, I am challenged because I don't hear anyone of this day say that's what a fast is to do. To break yokes, to lift up the afflicted. That's fasting. I'm hearing everyone talking about what kind of food I'm not going to put in my pantry.
To undo a heavy burden, it's to break the yoke of bondage upon us.
And 7, is it not to deal thy bread to the hungry, and that thou bring the poor that are cast out into thy house? Then thou shalt see the nakedness, and thou shalt cover him, and that thou hide not thyself from thine own flesh. No. Did I read that right?
Yeah.
From thine own flesh. Yeah. That's the kind of fasting I don't hear about.
Right.
I'm hearing, are we doing the Daniel fast? Are we going to just fast and do liquids? This is way more than food. This is whole heart encompassing.
Yeah, it is.
And then you're supposed to be praying during that time, and
Yeah.
a lot of people don't do that.
Yeah, so these people were just fasting food and it's ending in fist fights. And God's saying, did you do it for me? You're really going to bring this up and say you did this for me.
But you know what, Josh? This is the sad part of all of that. A lot of people will say, I'm going to fast. And I'm going to fast breakfast. And they don't eat breakfast.
Mm-hmm.
They don't eat breakfast. So they're not fasting. But they're throwing that out there. And what are they doing? They're trying to build up their ego. They're trying to impress somebody. But God knows. God knows that what we do and what we don't do. And He knows the heart that we do it in. If God challenges you to fast, that fast is between you and God. Now we've done the fast, for the first 21 days in January along with a lot of other churches and stuff. But I stopped doing that because if God didn't put that on your heart, don't do it for my account. You're supposed to be doing that to break those yokes and to get closer to God. That's what it's about.
Mm-hmm. And I guess this would be a good kind of thing to close. It's talking about, did you do it unto me?
Mm-hmm.
Really? We really got to think, do we do actions and is it honoring to God? Do we do it to eventually get to His glory and His magnification? In 1 Corinthians 10:31, whosoever here there thy eat or drink or whatsoever ye do all to the glory of God. And if I eat or drink, do we do it to the glory of God? And this is something I'm guilty of. Like the idea of praying over our food because it sanctifies it. I know I skip that. I do. I know it's a thing that I'm ashamed of. Do I thank God for it? There's a lot of people out there that think they work in it, and it's by their own hands that they accomplish these things. And you really got to have this wake-up call that you know that God is the one who gives breath to the person who writes your paycheck.
That's right.
That's something that I learned pretty early on working. He gives breath to the one that writes your paycheck. Something could happen, and then that check's off by a couple of weeks. What you gonna do? Really thank God for what He gives you. So I think that's where I can leave off now. It's definitely getting darker earlier, isn't it? Thank you for your time. Just think about doing these things to the Lord. And maybe remind people, because Isaiah 58 challenges me, but that's its own thing. Next week we'll continue on chapter 7.
Does that rain?
Thank you, everybody.
I know that we